Senator James Lankford released a federal government waste and solutions report on Monday. Lankford is carrying on the tradition established by his predecessor, Tom Coburn. Lankford's report highlights examples of wasteful or redundant spending in the nation's capital. Joining us now with more on the report is Casteel from the Oklahoman's Washington, D.C. office. And first of all, happy post-Thanksgiving. How are things there?
Oh, doing well, doing well. Cool and rainy, but no ice storms so far.
It is a gray day here as well, but yes, we did have the ice storm. It's starting to melt away. Federal fumbles, 100 ways the government dropped the ball. What's in this?
Yeah, it's mostly like the kind of report that Senator Tom Coburn put out for many years, his waste book. It's kind of a compendium of, wacky research spending and military boondoggles and the like. This one's a little bit different in that it's a little more ideological, a little more partisan than Coburn's were. He goes at Lankford, that is, Senator Lankford goes after Obamacare, he goes after EPA rules and regulations, and might be a little bit parochial too. And he goes after wind credits and not oil and gas tax credits. So, but basically, it's kind of the same format that we've seen from Senator Tom Coburn, where there'll be a project like the ill-fated and now much publicized gas station that the Department of Defense built in Afghanistan. $43 million for something that should never have cost even $1 million, and was never used. And those kinds of products are unfortunately kind of legion when it comes to DOD, especially Department of Defense, but also National Science Foundation. They're kind of it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel for people looking for waste. Just some of their research projects, whether it's what do bugs do when you turn on the lights, and and that kind of thing.
Sounds like clickbait, doesn't it? Top 5 things a bug does when you turn on the light. On the need for the federal fumbles waste report, the senator said the concern is that we're going to lose our focus on debt and spending. Is there a need to continue this tradition with this report?
I don't know. I mean, that's actually a good question. I would actually like to know how much it costs to put these things together. I mean, the thing about these waste books, and this was true of Coburn's too, I'm not trying to single out Lankford's, is that Lankford's office, for the most part, is not revealing any kind of any wasteful project that wasn't already exposed somewhere else. As with Coburn's books, a lot of these come from the media, from media reports, or they come from inspector general reports. No, inspector generals are kind of watchdogs that each department or agency have to look at the way they're spending money, or the Government Accountability Office, or other kind of watchdog groups. So I think mainly what these things have become is like some congressional staff member combing through Inspector General's reports, outside accountability group reports, and maybe Googling things and coming up with projects that have already been singled out and kind of ridiculed, or have been subject to something that, like, an inspector general says, we need to change this now. So the question is, what utility do they have, going forward, if really all you're doing is kind of compiling a bunch of things that have already been in the newspapers before, or various reports, and your report might get a few headlines, and there's another example of terrible government spending. Let's move on.
Talking with Casteel via Skype. He's in Washington, D.C. We're here in downtown Oklahoma City. Senator Lankford held a press conference today. And Chris, you got to ask the first question after the senator spoke about his report. Let's hear that exchange.
You and I have talked about this before, but I think your own office spending, and what you said that 535 people should have their own lists. I mean, are you comfortable with your own office spending? That there's nothing wasteful that you do in your own office? Well, the chief of staff thing, flying your chief of staff.
Yeah, you've mentioned this before. You don't like that to have a chief of staff that's Oklahoma-based. You want him to be D.C.-based. That was a decision that we made early on to say, I want someone who thinks more like Oklahoma than thinks more like that. So
money involved, not whether I like it or not.
Sure.
What I pointed out was that it costs thousands of dollars to fly him back and forth all the time and put him up in hotels.
If you have a Washington, D.C.-based chief of staff, then you fly them back to the state, and they also monitor that, and they have hotel bills and such there as well. So that's a decision that you make. Our office returned about $250,000 last year that we came in under budget in a first-year freshman office, which is incredibly expensive to do, to be able to set up the office at the very beginning. So
what I'm asking is, are you comfortable there's no waste in your own office?
I would say I'm comfortable with anyone coming in and doing oversight in our office, just like we have any oversight in any other agency. That is entirely reasonable to do. These are taxpayer dollars, and we reinforce that over and over again. Our salaries, our issues that we face in our office are very, very careful to make sure that we're taking care of people in an appropriate way and regarding taxpayer dollars.
Now, Chris, that is a valid question. Are you concerned about waste in your own office when you're releasing a report on waste?
Yeah, a lot of people don't seem to take it well when you ask them about their own spending. And Senator Lankford, I don't want to try to break down everything he said in response to me about that. But the point is that, and he's not the only one. There are 2 or 3 Oklahoma members of Congress now who do this with their chiefs of staff. And he tried to present it as kind of an either-or type deal. The guy's going to be traveling. In my opinion, that's kind of a straw man. That's not the way it used to be. And you can hire in Oklahoma, and plenty of members of Congress that I've been here for almost 26 years. I've seen it. Plenty of members of Congress have hired Oklahomans as their chiefs of staff that don't go back to Oklahoma, don't go back and forth to Oklahoma every week. And by the way, if they did, and they did have to stay in hotels and eat back there, it'd be one heck of a lot cheaper than having to do it in Washington. But again, it's just sort of, there's certain eye of the beholder type questions about waste in government. I'm not questioning anything that's on his list, but I would question whether that's he talked a lot today in his news conference about efficiency, whether flying your chief of staff back and forth every week and spending that kind of money on hotels and travel is the most efficient way. We're Skyping right now, right? Isn't that how we're communicating?
That's right.
Maybe travel is essential for that office. I don't know. But I do know in this day and age there are other ways to communicate long distance. But, earlier this year I did a story on Congressman Jim Bridenstine from Tulsa hiring a former Tea Party guy, putting him on the taxpayer payroll for, I think, about $64,000 to do a report, quote, confidential report, on what would happen if the U.S. defaulted on its debt. And number one, the U.S. is not going to default on its debt. There are too many people in this town that don't want that to happen, and it's just not going to happen. And he got a bit prickly when I asked him, why didn't your own staff, why don't you just have your existing staff do that report? He's got plenty of staff members that make good salaries. So anyway, get back to the main point. Maybe some of this waste is in the eye of the beholder.
I like it. Our man in Washington on top of things. Chris, we appreciate the conversation and the analysis today.
All right, Dave. Glad to do it.
All right, stay warm. More coverage from the Oklahoman's Chris Casteel can be found online at newsok.com and, of course, in the Oklahoman.